boost a person's energy?
Well, it's a billion-dollar industry. No exaggeration. It's a billion-dollar industry. Coca-Cola's in it, Pepsi's in it, you name it. Everybody's in the energy drink business.
Correct.
Okay, and it is big business. So I see that one in a lot of levels like you, and it's the question is actually, can energy drinks boost a person's energy? But go with that and much more.
Okay, I want to. So I'm going to go back to World War II again. In World War II and in Korea and in Vietnam, our fighter pilots were given 5 milligram amphetamine tablets, which were a diet aid and a boost when they were on fighter missions. So the idea of having some sort of a stimulant for a combat operation or a sports operation goes back to science and to military history, to World War II, and actually before that, people in the Andes chewing cocaine leaves. So
right.
The energy drink business begins with athletes drinking coffee before sporting events. It was shown in the 1960s that 150 milligrams of caffeine, which is 1 cup of coffee, given to a guy like me or you getting ready to run a weekend 10K race, or to a professional marathoner, increased their time by just a tiny bit, but made it a little bit better. So the idea of the energy drink comes along in the 60s and 70s using the drug ephedrine. Well, ephedrine is the building block of methamphetamine. You can't buy it anymore. It used to be in cold pills. Now you got to sign at the pharmacy to get it. Okay, so now they have caffeine in these drinks in real high amounts. There's a lot of sugar in these drinks. It's thought that 35% of 12-year-olds to 17-year-olds drink energy drinks almost every day. And there are thousands of emergency room visits every year for rapid heartbeat, nausea, vomiting, psychotic events because of sleep deprivation, where people have used too much of the energy drink. So the idea about energy drinks boosting a person's energy is they're mostly abused. And the medical community is against the idea of energy drinks, and not only against the idea, but there are a lot of lawsuits against this Monster with the little thing, Monster drink. There's a lot of lawsuits against Monster for the medical complications of teenagers that have used and abused them. And if you take more than 1 drink a day, you'll get enough caffeine to have possible side effects: insomnia, rapid heartbeat, high blood pressure. People our age could have a heart attack by doing it. So the idea is, yes, they can boost your energy, but stay away from them. The second thing about it, third or fourth thing is that adolescents who get used to using energy drinks, say 3, 4 a day, and you can see them every day at these 7-Elevens around here, that's an entry-level drug to methamphetamine abuse. And really, if you stop and think about the idea that an adolescent will think that getting jacked up with Monster or whatever one they want to drink is going to help, is a good thing, then it's not a big wall to imagine them next going to methamphetamine. Lastly, there's a tremendous amount of sugar in those drinks. And so when they start,
a lot of sugar.
You'll remember now that in Latin American countries, lots and lots of, and even in this country, you'll see it, the mamas will put these sugar-containing energy drinks, I'm not going to use a brand because I think it's made by Coca-Cola, in the baby's bottle. And the babies will be drinking them, and it leads to terrible tooth decay, it leads to obesity. And so basically at the end of the day, the answer is yes, an energy drink can boost your energy, but so can a cup of coffee from Starbucks.
Okay. I can go
enough
with
that one.
Huh?
Okay, that's enough of that one.
Well, I always have to go with I used to have truck drivers, and they would come in and they had these Monster, and that's what they're called, Monster, energy, and they'd have 2 of them, and they say, oh, I can't even get started if I don't have my 2 Monster energy drinks. I say, back in my day, we got a cup of coffee and went to work.
That's right, yeah. And that's exactly what I did this morning. I didn't sleep well last night. I got up at 5:30 and I had myself a cup of coffee, and I usually exercise, and that's enough. And I got the tab. I have my one tab.
Yes, we have the Doctor approved.
Tab.
Tab.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, the second one that was, I get this question all the time at cocktail parties and stuff about the little, about your
Is this what comes up at the cocktail? I mean,
seriously.
I love that.
People,
okay.
Well, people always ask
No,
this question. I got the eye twitch, or I've got the facial twitch. Now that myokinesia, or muscle jerking, is what causes it. It's got no cause, and it occurs in normal people, so you don't worry about it. 99.9% of these that occur in the eyelid or on a facial twitch like that occurs infrequently. Fatigue, you might come up with more energy drinks, but it's not a harmful thing, and it's a discharge of a nerve root, and nobody really knows why it happens. Now, that 0.1% that occurs in other parts of the body can be associated with various neurological conditions, and don't worry about it.
I don't get it that often, but I notice when, like, if my eye just takes off for just a couple seconds, it seems like it's not a minute, but
right.
you know, just
That's right.
If it just takes off, it is generally when maybe I'm exhausted or tired or something. Maybe I don't
think
know.
Tupelo tea will do it to you. I think maybe
we're good with Tupelo tea.
The monster drink, that monster with a lot of caffeine could make it more likely. Yes.
Absolutely, everything's okay over here.
Yeah, it is. All right, I just mentioned it. Not the Tupelo tea. And the tab might do it,
Yeah,
but not the Tupelo tea.
Not the Tupelo tea. Well, I thought that was an interesting question coming. Now, there was a couple of things you bring every week, and we appreciate Dr. Whaley, and these segments are on our YouTube channel. If you want to share them with people that don't get the opportunity to watch, that is FYN TV, Fetch Your News, our YouTube channel. Every week after we get through our questions, you do research and pull up the most recent things that have been released or published in the medical field. What do you have for us today?
Well, let's stick on this drug abuse thing first, because yesterday there was a huge amount of publicity, and I saw the governor interviewed last night on Fox News. Governor of Ohio. It is the governor of Ohio suing the Purdue Frederick Company over the manufacture of the drug OxyContin. And OxyContin happens to be the biggest abused drug in the country. They have 15 overdose deaths. I think he said, 15 overdose deaths a day or something in Ohio from this drug. And the medical publications about it are really quite interesting, in that in 1980 or so, a guy who did a small study and studied narcotic administration to patients in the hospital. So imagine now you've got a broken leg, or you had a knee replacement, and they give you a narcotic drug in the hospital. He published that does not lead to addiction. You know, you got a bottle, you got 20 of them, and that was the end of it. That was that was just a letter to the editor of a medical publication, not a scientific study. The drug companies have quoted that 600 times in other sponsored research or government filings, and they marketed this drug OxyContin to family practitioners and orthopedists and stuff as a reasonable pain alternative for the guy with chronic pain. Well, my back hurts all the time, you know, your knee hurts all the time. And they sort of created this environment that there was no addiction potential to taking these opiate drugs, and they sold it hard. They would hire doctors, they'd give them slide sets to take and give a talk, or they would do some of these studies. I think I quoted to you a couple of times, not OxyContin, but if you take hydrocodone, a Advil-like drug, aspirin, and compare them in dental surgery or knee replacement, they're all equal in terms of their pain relief. Well, that's true. Well, then they made it that these narcotic drugs, they're equal in pain relief, and they're equal in terms of their abuse potential, which is not true. So that big lawsuit's coming up, and it all is based on the fact that the drug companies took bad information and did the same thing they did with tobacco. So that may be a little bit left wing, but it's the same thing that the tobacco industry does, and I still smoke cigars. But anyway, so I thought
let me expand on that just a little bit, if you don't mind. I watched a documentary. It was called Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you watched that?
No, but I actually did watch it. Yeah.
Okay. So I watched this documentary, Dr. Feelgood. Now, let me go another direction. In this, if I remember it, they discussed that still, no matter what you're diagnosed in the medical field, pain is still something that diagnosing pain, it's just not there.
Not there.
It's not there. So I'm right. It's diagnosing pain.
That's right.
Right?
There is no mechanism.
No mechanism to diagnose pain.
That's right.
So explain the chart 1 to 10. The smiley face, you go in, you sit down with your family physician and you say it hurts. And they bring in the chart. It's got 1 to 10 and 1 is smiling and the last one, tears are coming down your eyes, right?
That's correct.
So talk about pain and the chart and how that's supposed to come together.
All right.
Go, you with me?
Not only that, but we are absolutely required by Medicare regulations to measure the pain scale every visit of 100% of the patients that we see in a cancer practice.
Okay.
So we do it, I did it 40 times yesterday. So the idea is that the worst pain you can imagine, and we usually say childbirth or passing a kidney stone.
Not to interrupt you, but the pain scale is not what you diagnose, it's what the patient tells you.
That's correct.
Right?
We tell them. We say, you imagine the worst pain you could possibly imagine, childbirth or passing a kidney stone. That's the one I use. They use others. Is
throw
10.
Gallstone in there.
Yeah, or gallstone is 10, and in a normal situation is 0. In that scale, where are you today? Well, people, depends on how tough they are, you know. You got the sheriff's department, people come in there, you know, and they got a broken leg, you know, and they say, I'm a 2. And then my mama with a hangnail would have been a 10. So it's subjective, very subjective. It has a lot to do with the patient's own sort of personality type. And you've just got to ask them, what do you think you are today? And they'll tell you. And that's what you have to record. You cannot interpret what they said and think, well, you know, he's sort of a crybaby. He says an 8, I'm going to give him a 6. So if you said it's an 8 and you're sitting there just like this, you know, I say, you know, he doesn't look like he's in pain to me, but if it's an 8, I got to put it down. So it's very subjective. It cannot be in any way validated, if that's the term.
Okay, because like I said, when I watch that, when we're talking about oxycodone, we're talking about lawsuits, we're talking about opiates in this country. It's to me, it's just a disaster right now. What has taken place over the last several years? Back to heroin addiction. I mean, I thought that was a 60s and early 70s thing, and that I thought it was over in the 80s and 90s. But we're back to heroin addiction. It's almost like we've reset in the war on drugs. We have.
From 1968 to 1972, I was the medical director of the largest narcotic treatment program in the world. And we had 4,500 addicts under one license getting methadone treatment. Almost 100% of those were SCAG, heroin, and virtually no prescription drugs. Now this is 50 years later, and most of the addiction that gets in the hospital and stuff is prescription drugs. Heroin is a real problem, particularly in the urban community. But in terms of the total scale of drug abuse, it's probably 10 or 20%. And the other 80% is prescription drugs. And they're taking, heroin now is so cheap, and they're lacing it with synthetic fentanyl that the overdoses that are occurring with that drug are legion. And that's why every police officer and every fire truck and every emergency first responder has that Narcan stuff in their possession where they can whack somebody a shot of that stuff and reverse reverse the narcotic overdose and the inability to breathe. Otherwise, these fatalities that are so many would be 3 or 4 times greater. Every day, probably in every county we have around here, some first responder is going somewhere where somebody's, if you watched last night, you watched Fox, you saw those 2 grandparents sitting in the car, totally buzzed, totally unconscious, and the grandkids sitting in the back seat. Our first responders have the ability now to stop that with a drug they carry, kind of like the EpiPen, but it's not that.
We could discuss this on and on. I got another direction I want to go in. Folks, for you at home there watching, we're in small town America. There are noises in the background. It's called Starting Up the Day in Small Town Rural America in Blue Ridge here. We got some tractors and we got some trucks because they're doing some construction. So we're going to elevate the volume on our voice and we're going to power through and enjoy the beautiful weather in North Georgia.
And we're going to have the train whistle in a while.
And, right, 9 o'clock train whistle. So let's segue with beautiful weather. May has been an extremely wet month for Georgia. We're in June now and we're getting some nice heated days. The temperature's up, and somebody posted on Facebook and said, if you don't believe, and this is when I thought about you, if you don't believe there's mosquitoes in North Georgia, I just got bit 3 times. I said, oh no. Moisture in May, hot June, bit by a mosquito. So would I guess correct that you have a Zika update?
I got my Zika update.
Told you.
May the 31st. The first mosquitoes that are carrying the Zika virus are now in Florida and in Texas. So far in the United States, there are 5,285 cases of Zika virus. I mean, that's huge. There's only 10,000 cases of HIV a year now. So this thing right here is huge. And there have been almost 50 that were sexually transmitted. So go out in your yard. I saw a big sign the other day. It showed somebody turning their wading pool over and taking a tire, an old tire in the backyard and turning it over. You need to go out about every 48 hours and when it's been raining around here and turn over all of these things in your yard.
That will just cup this, anything that has a cup like.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to have more than a spoonful of water in it. It's got to be turned over.
Well,
unless it's running like a stream.
Right, where Zika is concerned, last year we heard a lot in the media and we heard a lot in the medical field concerning Zika. There's a feeling, because it's not being reported, that it went away, but it didn't. It's just we've gone through fall, winter, spring.
Correct.
And it didn't go away.
No.
So let me ask you, has there been any advances medically? I mean, are we getting any closer to understanding this?
Well, first of all, I think we understand the virus. We know it can be sexually transmitted. In the United States, there's actually been one, I think I told you at the end of the fall last year, that was passed from person to person to older people by cheers. So it could be passed in any sort of bodily fluid, blood transfusion. They're tested for Zika now. Sexually, it can be transmitted. They're working on the vaccine. You know, the flu shot be the Zika shot. So sooner or later we'll have a vaccine for it. But that same mosquito, there's another viral illness, not Zika, that may be coming to this country soon, that's just been recognized in Latin America and in Africa, that we've never heard of in this country. We won't go into it yet, but
well, you know, I was going to ask you, you know, what it's almost like if something explodes and then settles down a little bit in the actual front pages, then there's like something right around the corner.
Yeah, so, it didn't go away, by the way.
So
it's just that it doesn't have the community interest it did when everybody thought you couldn't go to Florida. Well, you wait till later in the summer and we'll know, because we really don't know right now how much attack we're going to have, but everybody predicts that it's going to be bigger than it was last year.
Anything else on that I know we got to get you out of here because you're traveling today.
I do want to, you know, I can never not tell you about the exercise thing. Yesterday in Great Britain, one of the British literature, a very good study was reported that the exercise level that I have been touting here for a year of 60 minutes a day of walking, or 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week of running, can be proven to extend the length of your life by 9 years. Now, they figured out how, and that's the thing I've never seen before. A mitochondria, you've heard of that, that's in your cell, has a little thing at the end called a telomere, and the vigorous exercises, telomeres are shortening less rapidly than the older people. That's the thing that makes you old. So you don't take the energy drink and go jog. You go jog without the energy drink and walk without the energy drink, and you live 9 years longer.
How about drinking a lot of water?
Well, we talked about that earlier. You can actually drink too much water.
Whoa, Sam, don't you dare. Did you get her? I drink about, you see those right there?
I know.
There's days I drink 7 or 8 of those.
Well, you're not going to hurt yourself as long as you're eating well.
It starts like 2 hours of the day.
Sam!
Yeah, but as long as you're eating well, you're not going to hurt yourself.
She said within the first two, don't.
But at the end of the day, if
how would she know?
Well, she follows the health news, I've told you back before they had Gatorade, a really good friend of mine ran the Boston Marathon with me and was going into the airport in Boston to come back to Atlanta, and he was a physician, by the way, and he fell over unconscious with a seizure, and he had been drinking water to rehydrate himself, and he had a low serum sodium, and that was back before they had Gatorade. But I told you, I used to always eat pretzels and orange candy and drink the water, but you can't drink too much water.
A friend of mine one day said, how can you drink so much water? And then she said, I can't stand the taste.
Colorless, odorless, tasteless.
Yeah,
that's water. Yeah. By definition.
Yeah, so I can't stand the taste. So I said, okay.
Yeah, but if she's in Florida and gets it out of a tap, that tastes like sulfur or chlorine. But if you come out of a good North Georgia spring or Georgia well, it's colorless, odorless, and tasteless, and it's wonderful.
Now, here you go.
That's right.
You got some good well
in rural America.
Rural America, you got it. Hey, we turned the show around a little bit this morning. We opened up with Ask the Doc with Dr. Whaley. Thank you, Georgia Cancer Specialist. We're at Sycamore Crossing in downtown Blue Ridge, Georgia. A little background noise here is what we call starting up the morning, Friday morning. Beautiful in Blue Ridge. Come on up. This weather, this is beautiful,
It's
right?
beautiful, yeah.
Absolutely. So come on up to Sycamore Crossing. Now, where we're at, I don't think I've ever said this. Where we're at, you can come up here. You can go into Tupelo Tea, get a tea, and come out here where we're at and relax a minute, right?
Yeah, read.
Relax a minute, bring a book.
Can't smoke.
No smoking.
But you can read a book.
But no smoking.
Hey, not only that, but you could actually talk to one another, and not have a telephone.
You mean you could put the phone down?
You could put the phone down.
Conversation?
And have a conversation.
I've heard of things like that.
It's like those two Irishmen coming out of the bar. It could happen.
It could. We have to get you to the airport.
All right.
I'm sorry, we wish you safe travels, but I'm glad you're going to the airport and not me. I'm your host, BKP. When we get back, we've turned it around. I'm going to do actually my opening monologue. Donald Trump said he was elected to represent the people of Pittsburgh, not Paris. And President Trump, I think, has cut up the ATM card of Europe, and they are upset. They stuck the card in, they said the PIN number doesn't match.
Yeah, right.
So Trump changed the PIN number on the cash of the Americans going over into Europe. Woo. The media, the montage, they're going crazy. It's a sad day. I heard.
But they waited until they had the chip on the card.
They're opening up some of the shows with, it's a sad day in America. It's a sad day. I'm your host, BKP. We'll be back right after this again. Thank you very much.